Hey, good morning, you fine, fabulous book people. It is well read beard. It is a damn fine day to talk about a book. And today we are here for a book review. We're going to talk about Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield. This is another book that came out of my Ryan Holiday rabbit hole dive. And again, I hate to keep repeating, about him, but look it up on YouTube. Anyway, writer, bookshop owner, talks about a lot of nonfiction stuff, and some of the stuff that's come out of it is stuff like this: productivity, creativity, also by the same author, Stephen Pressfield. I'm in the middle of this one now. It's really, really good. I read another one I think called Do the Work, but I branched out into his historical fiction stuff, his historical novelizations, if you will. This is again Gates of Fire. It's about the epic Battle of Thermopylae 300. You've probably heard of it. You've possibly seen the movie. So for me, 5-star subject matter. I mean, I dig the hell out of the whole idea of the 300. And I would tell you that it's really, really good writing. But for some reason, like it fell a little flat for me. I did it in audio, which is probably my fault. I found it sloggy at times, which again is probably my fault. But what I would say is, I just don't think in general this stuff is my cup of tea. And I thought the 300, the idea of the 300 could win me over, could surpass. I don't really, I'm not really a war guy. I'm not really a historic. I mean, I think it's weird. I think had this been written about World War II or something like that, we know enough, or the writer knows enough to put in a lot of other interesting shit to make a book about a war, or let's say a famous general, or something like that, interesting. Whereas in this, I mean, where it's ancient Greece, I mean, we know the idea of the 300, but I think a lot of that stuff is probably lost to history, right? Like we probably don't really know at the end of the day who Leonidas was, whereas we know who, you know, Winston Churchill is. You know what I mean? And maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but it's just a thought I had. Again, but I will say this: like when I came out of this book, I said, it's okay. It was a 2-star read. But I have been thinking about it quite a lot since then. So in my mind, that elevates it a bit. Probably more like a 3-star read. But let's get a little synopsis, and then we will talk a little bit more. At Thermopylae, a rocky mountain pass in northern Greece, the feared and admired Spartan soldiers stood 300 strong. Theirs was a suicide mission to hold the pass against the invading millions of the mighty Persian army. Day after bloody day, they withstood the terrible onslaught, buying time for the Greeks to rally their forces. Born into a cult of spiritual courage, physical endurance, and unmatched battle skill, the Spartans would be remembered for the greatest military stand in history, one that would not end until the rocks were awash with blood, leaving only one gravely injured Spartan squire to tell the tale. So, our narrator is an injured Spartan squire, and he's telling all this entire book, he's telling it to Xerxes. I didn't really catch onto that, so my assumption is he's captured, right? But he is Xerxes, the whatever emperor, whatever of Persia, the invading force, is very intrigued by the Spartan will, the Spartan mindset, Spartan training, how they did what they did, how they had the guts, I guess, to do what they did, to basically take on a suicide mission, to hold off, to hold off an unbeatable foe as long as they could, while the rest of Greece got their shit together, to actually defend the country, or whatever. So that's the gist, So we get into a lot of training and early pre battle type stuff. The battle stuff at the end, it was pretty damn good. And like I said, normally that's not really my favorite parts of a book about war or whatever. But it was pretty good. The whole line about that the Persian arrows, were so many from the Persian archers that it would blot out the sun. And the guy said, well, then we'll just have the battle in the shade. That actually, I mean, I guess actually happened. It's in the movie and it's in this book. And I thought that was cool. Did you know that Leonidas was 60 years old? I didn't know that. I don't know how old the actor was supposed to be, but 60 years old. I'm 48. And the thought of you know hiking to a narrow mountain slash sea pass and fighting to the death. He was 60 years old. Now, another thing that of course, there weren't really just 300. There were 300 Spartans, but there were like 7,000 in total of like other um, clans and military people that were there fighting on the side of the 300, and which is still insurmountable odds when faced with the millions, it says, of the Persians. Now that sounds like a lot. Was it really millions? I don't know. But anyway, so it's a cool story about a very, very cool subject. It's just not really in my wheelhouse, and while I kind of expected to love it just based off of what other people had said about it and what I'd heard about it on Ryan Holiday's YouTube channel. Again, Pressfield goes there. There's a video where you can watch Holiday and Pressfield walk around the bookstore and talk about books and whatnot. So that's really cool. That's how I got here. I will say that when I picked this up, I picked up a couple others. He's got one about the Peloponnesian War. He's got one about like Amazons, which, to be honest with you, I think I thought that Amazons were all the way fictional. I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to get to those. I don't know that I'm going to read more of his stuff about this, just or like this, his historical fiction. But this stuff, I'm all the way in on, and I've got like I said, I've done Do the Work. I've got another one here called Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be or something. This has been great. I just started the War of Art this morning, and it's knocking my socks off. I'm like 40 pages in. But anyway, Gates of Fire, Stephen Pressfield, The Battle of Thermopylae, 300, King Leonidas. I will say that, there's a lot of Nikes in this book. There's poly Nikes and dia Nikes and um, Pia Nikes and front. I mean, but there's a lot of Nikes, and because of that, especially in audio, they kind of ran together. It was hard to tell which Nike I was, talking with or listening to or whatever. But another thing is that the narrator of this has got a really cool voice. Like I had to look. I thought it was the same guy that kind of plays this part in the film. The guy that comes back home, war torn with the eye patch and all. It sounded a lot like the same guy, and maybe. I mean, I've got to assume that this book was published before the film. I don't even know the answer to that. Let me look really quick. This was published in 1998. I'm not sure when the film came out. I think it was after that though. But Pressfield's kind of famous for the Legend of Bagger Vance, which was a Will Smith film. Um, anyways, but he's got I don't know 10 or so. He's got Killing Rommel, the Afghan Campaign, The Virtues of War, Last of the Amazons is the one I was talking about. Tides of War is the Peloponnesian War, and of course this is Gates of Fire. But his nonfiction, Turning Pro, Do the Work, The War of Art, The Warrior Ethos. And there's another one called Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be or something. I actually have it right here if you give me 1 second. So this is one that I've got, which I guess he hadn't written at the time of this book because it wasn't listed in the list. But anyway, I gave it 2 stars. That's probably unfair. It's probably more like 3 for me. But if you're a history buff, like if you're a historical fiction, if you're a novelization of ancient Greek stuff. I mean, this would have to be probably a pretty top rated book in that, subgenre. So, anyway, Gates of Fire, Stephen Pressfield. Even as I sit here and talk about it, I dug it more than I gave it credit for, but I don't know. I'm torn. I mean, a lot of this stuff, a lot of these early books, as I branch out into other types of things, I feel like they're gonna fall short, and that's really probably unfair to them. But it is what it is. This is Gates of Fire, Stephen Pressfield. Well read beard. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're enjoying all your books, all of them, as much as I am. If not, you're reading the wrong damn books.